Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmic Conversations on the Conscious Awakening Network. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, and I want to thank you for being here. So, whether you're watching us live or whether you're watching us on one of our platforms live or whether you're listening to the replay, thank you so much. And I've been told we received a #1 rating on Apple. So, thank you guys so much for watching us. Now, on tonight's episode, we have Phil Gruber. Phil is featured in the critically acclaimed film The Indigo Evolution. His passion, enthusiasm, kind spirit, sparkling wit, and intelligence make him a much loved and highly respected in-demand speaker on the international scene. He is a licensed acupuncturist, a redress lymphologist, and is familiar with the impressive array of traditional and complementary healing modalities. He is acknowledged worldwide as one of the foremost teachers of advanced healing systems, light language, sacred geometry, the Magdalene mysteries, the indigos, the structure of space, time, ET contact, the art and science of dimensional ascension, the evolutionary path of human consciousness, and an ever expanding repertoire of diverse and fascinating subjects. Phil is the founder of most maximum optimization system technologies and is legally programmed the most. The result oriented seminar experience ROSE, ROSE, which employs the plus, ultra, and prismatic learning systems unique to this program. Woo, Phil, that's a mouthful. So, Phil
Wow.
is a systems thinker, a former analyst, a futurist, and a decision strategist. He has spoken at the United Nations and is the co-author with James Twyman of the best-selling The Kabbalah Codes. And his CD, The Song of Indra, has earned an iconic stature in the genre of New Age music. So tonight, he's going to share with us about humanity. Can't talk, guys, about humanity's sacred divine mission. So, Phil, it is so awesome to have you here. It's always great to have you with us, and I just can't wait to hear what you've got to share. So, I'm going to turn it over to you.
It's been a while. Thank you, Sheila. And also thank you, Suze. Just to let you know, there's going to be some changes in the cosmic conversations. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But basically, things are going to stay pretty much the same. This is going to be a place where we can have dialogues like this on a regular basis. You know, um, And I really am honored and privileged to have been asked to sort of take over or being given the reins, being given the not as intense as returning the ring to Mount Doom, but
No
I've decided.
surprise, everybody. I was going to tell you at the end.
Okay, well that's I won't go anymore into that. But it's great to be back. It's great to be back. There's a lot of people that I don't know that don't know me. So in terms of an introduction, I mean that was you read the long version, which is real again a mouthful, you know, um, and there's more to that. But what I want to focus on tonight, or whenever you happen to be listening to this on whatever platform you're listening, as you all know, I don't have to tell you that this is a critical time. We're at a critical juncture in our tenure here as embodied souls, and the decisions that we make on a moment to moment basis are going to have the most profound and significant ramifications, not only for us, not only for the ones we hold dear, not only for the ones we don't hold dear, but for the planet itself, and not just for the planet, for what's called the entire time matrix. We're talking about history. We're talking about chunks of 950 cycles of 950 billion years. I wish Carl Sagan was still alive. I wish we could talk. You know, I wish I could lay him on to some of this information because I think he would have really run with it. I got to meet him a couple of times informally, but I think he was open to this type of information. So, what I want to talk about briefly now, I can talk and talk and talk. And again, there are a lot of people that know me from previous webinars, podcasts, whatever, um, all-nighters. But there are a lot of people who don't know me. And in terms of getting to know you, I want to briefly talk about where this information that I share comes from. And I don't mind being asked, Norm, Susie, you all know this. For many, many years, I didn't talk a lot about myself. I wanted to talk. I wanted to share the information. But then it behooves me to talk about where the information comes from. I have the utmost confidence in this information. I know with my full body, soul, heart, mind, and spirit that this information is the closest to the truth that I can possibly come at this point. Well, actually, I believe it is the truth. I owe a lot to my first wife, Yesha Ashiana. A lot of people know that. But even before I met her in this life, I was familiar with this information through my experience. Um, Kathy, real quick. No, I don't have a brother, but you're talking about, I met him recently in Marin at an expo. No, we're not related, although he could be a distant cousin. There is another Phil, and I'll talk about him, another Gruber, and I'll talk about him later. It was really great meeting and sort of a namesake. But anyway, I digress. Phil Gruber digressing? No, heavens no. But I want to talk about where this information comes from and where I believe all higher information comes from. And maybe most of this session, I will talk about, and I'm going to talk about what you, in your innermost heart of hearts, must begin to believe is our divine mission here, our sacred mission, because once we know that, it's downhill or uphill from there. Aren't these the most profound and significant questions we ask ourselves? Who are we? Where do we come from and why are we here? Well, I believe that we have probably the most detailed, accurate, sophisticated information that we can possibly access right now that answer those questions. And once those questions are answered, then we really are just being asked to fulfill these contracts. And people are coming into the memory now. Sometimes it takes a little stimulation, a little tweaks. Yes, it's true. We do have this information within us, but how do we access it? Most of the information that we should have now at our fingertips, at our disposal, is blocked. It's blocked at the level of the cellular structure. It's blocked at the level of our neurology, of our nervous system. It's blocked at the level of our DNA. There are many, many filters that information has to pass through. Here on the 3D level and even higher information, it's always coming in. It's always there. We're always in touch with our higher selves, with our higher identities that exist in dimensions, frequency bands that are higher or even lower than this three-dimensional harmonic universe placement we're in. And just because I'll use some terms that are somewhat unfamiliar to you, well, the whole idea is they're going to be made more familiar. You're going to feel, and I know everybody has gotten back to me with the feedback, that the more they really pursue this information, this level of information, the more familiar it seems. Like light language, like light channeling of light language. Isn't it, have you ever noticed that it's beginning to sound more familiar to you? And that light language channelers, their channelings are beginning to sound very similar, sometimes almost the same. Well, that's because the first languages we're going to channel are the ones that are closest to us genetically. As our fourth, fifth, and sixth strands really begin to come into activation, they relate to fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional levels of our higher identity, levels of ourselves that are situated in higher dimensions and higher universes. All this stuff is going to be explained I'll talk about later the programs that I offer. If you're interested, get in touch with me. Right now, I want to talk about where this information comes from. Now, in previous webinars and podcast interviews, I've talked about something called the Emerald Covenant. The Emerald Covenant goes back 950 billion years ago, and this I'll have to condense, where races that we call the Brennau, the Rishi, the founders races in our time matrix decided, convened, however it is that pure beings of pure radiance, pure waveform convene, and they decided that life would be allowed to evolve cooperatively and co-creatively within our time matrix. And that original agreement was called the Emerald Covenant. It is at the bottom line what the Wizard of Oz is all about. And it's about time, Sheila Suze, that I taught another workshop on the Wizard of Oz. It's been many, many years, and I'll tell you who doesn't like it. The International Wizard of Oz Club Society hates when I talk about this. Because they're not willing to cop to the fact that L. Frank Baum himself, the author of the original Oz books, was a member of the Theosophical Society. Many years before he wrote The Wizard of Oz, he and his wife were initiated into the Ramayana sect of the Chicago Theosophical Society. I have original typewritten notes when he edited the Saturday Aberdeen Daily Pioneer, where he talks about past life, where he talks about theosophy. They can't avoid this. That if you read the Wizard of Oz, especially the original 14 Wizard of Oz books, 14 Stations of the Cross, 14 Rare Earth Elements, I can go on and on and on. I lost myself again. That this, if you read The Wizard of Oz through a metaphysical, I mean a real hardcore metaphysical lens, a theosophical lens, there are secrets. There are deep, 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 deep secrets embedded in The Wizard of Oz. Well, this Emerald Covenant has been restated many times in our history. And we'll get more and more into that as time goes on. 248,000 years ago, during what was called the third seeding, we were given a gift. Now, this Emerald Covenant has been restated many times through our history, but 248,000 years ago, the density 4, which is dimensions 10, 11, and 12, we like to call the Christos. This is where avatars, Buddhas, bodhisattvas are situated. Density 4 and their biologies are what we still call biologies, matter densities, but they exist in field. They are liquid light. They are pre-matter hydroplasmic consciousness. Beautiful liquid light hydroplasm. Density 4, Lyran Anuhazi. These are founders, elder races. These are feline, upright walking bipedal feline hominids. And from densities 2 and 3, from the angelic and the archangelic, or soul and oversoul levels, the Syrian Azurites. When we talk about the Azurites, we're talking about the blues, the Syrian blues, Sirius B, on behalf of the orders of the Brennau. Now, these are fifth density beings, dimension 13, 14, and 15, above the avatar levels. It's kind of between the avatar, Buddha, Bodhisattvic levels and the ascended master levels that some of us call the yanas. On behalf of these orders, these founders' races, they presented a gift, a very special gift to the Earth human guardian races, the races that honored the Emerald Covenant. This gift was a massive library of information detailing the history of our time matrix, 950 billion years, creation physics, the mechanics of operating what's called the interplanetary Templar, which is the set of stargates, internal stargates, personal Templar, or many know this set of stargates, black and white holes within us as the inner Templar. The planet has a set of stargates that allow access to the interdimensional or intertime stargates. We're going to define it progressively, and especially if you join our groups, which I hope you would consider, we get into all this information. all this information in as much detail as you could possibly want, but realize our programs are technique oriented. The knowledge is very important. The knowledge is power. Read Isaiah, read Hosanna. My people suffer from lack of knowledge and the utilization of knowledge, the conversion from knowledge to wisdom. Well, this gift was a massive library. Again, detail 950 billion years. The true history of our 15-dimensional time matrix, ascension mechanics, creation physics, bio-spiritual healing techniques, and also the mechanics of operating the interplanetary Templar complex. Some people will call it the Holy Grail. There are many people among us that have these soul agreements. They're part of a living life network. Although most of us don't remember, we made these choices before we incarnated on Earth. Choices as to what life dramas that we would explore for our continued learning in the continued evolution of our souls. All learning in these earthly realms are ultimately endeavored to move us along our path of evolution through the process of dimensional ascension and the fulfillment of the promise of our DNA. The framework for these life dramas, although we rarely honor them, we need to remember what they are in order to fulfill them. If you don't know what the law is, and I'm talking about the law of one, you're more likely to violate it. And any violation of the law of one in thought, in words, in deeds, and actions is going to ultimately create a condition called karma, which is manifested as these sort of black crystallizations in our DNA, miasms. And the miasms block the flow of light. They block the flow of knowledge. They block the flow of information. They block us in understanding who we really are. How are we going to fulfill these contracts we made when we simply have these blocks and we can't remember who we are, what we are, our relationship to God, our place in a vast cosmic order? This is why we're here. That's more than half of it. So once entering the earthly realms, we lose memory of these higher choices because our genetic code is immature and it's not functioning as it was originally intended to. We lose memory of ourselves. We lose memory of God in our relationship to source. And the strands that are functioning can't process the higher dimensional experience through its limited structure. It's all about the DNA. But we're working consciously, at least we are. A lot of people are, but I believe that a lot of the paradigms that are out there are limited. And because they're limited, they're limiting in terms of what people can do. And that's not through any fault of their own, except that they are ignorant in a very, in a loving way of what's really required to free us, to learn the true meaning of love, to learn the true meaning of freedom. Well, when the memory starts coming back, we're going to remember, we're going to discover and rediscover that we made these soul agreements to play significant roles such as flame holders, flame keepers, key holders. And when I describe these, not today, but maybe next week, because we have a very special guest next week, and Sheila will talk about that a little bit later, we can really understand that we have these contracts and why we're able to fulfill these contracts. And it's all about what we have genetically. Back to the gift. The gift is a set of 12 small holographic recording discs that are called by many names. We know them as the Dora Torah plates. The Cloister Dora Torah, or the Eternal Dora Torah, or CDT plates. They are an electromagnetic storage library. It's very important to understand what these plates are, because the source of all higher knowledge has one primary source, and it is these Dora Torah plates. They're a set of 12 holographic recording discs that were given to what's called the Ur-Tite. Important to call these races by name, because just by sympathetic resonance, Ur-Tite, just by naming these races, it's going to pluck your heartstrings. It's because it resonates with the parts of your genetic code that resonate with these races by their names. Like, like a resonant, like playing notes on the piano. This is how we can learn or continue to learn how to identify ourselves, what our true tribes are, to really fulfill our contracts in this life. If we know what we're supposed to do and we go to those places where we're have the highest probability of fulfilling our soul contracts, it's because these places on the planet vibrate or resonate with our genetic code. We're meant to do certain work at certain places on the planet. Many of us have had the fortune to be born in these locations, or during the course of our lives, we're led to these places. And what leads us is our genetics, is our genome, is that resonance. Okay. Also, it's called the cloister human races, again, by these fifth density Brenau orders. The founders races in our time matrix, the densities 2 and 3, the soul and oversoul Syrian Azurites, the Syrian blues, the Krishna type races, 248,000 years ago, is the source. Now, again, the original Emerald Covenant of Aramatena, let that one sit with you a while. Aramatena, again, was formed 950 billion years ago when the density 5, when the emerald, gold, and amethyst order, the Brenau, the Rishi, last seeded a life field into our time matrix 248,000 years ago. This Emerald Covenant of Aramatena held the objectives of these three Brenau races. Races, consciousness, again, of waveform, pure radiance, pure living light. These collectives had the intention of creating a diversified life field of interdimensional races within all the density levels of our time matrix. And this Emerald Covenant decreed the intention of peaceful coevolution, cooperation, which is really what the law of one is founded on, co-creative, cooperative evolution for all races within these densities, with the intrinsic evolutionary objective of what? Ascension, freedom from our time matrix. Yes, we had this experience through time that we bring back to source with us, but the evolutionary path of human consciousness is nothing short of dimensional ascension. And why we're here, we're going to talk about in a minute. But again, the evolutionary objective of all life in our time matrix, especially the human being, the original angelic, immortal, Turunusian human being. You talk about 950 billion years, the race that we are incarnates from or for, only goes back 560, 70 million years. That's a blink in terms of the history of our time matrix. We're young. We're young. And I think Captain Kirk says if we can survive this, or Spock said, this technological adolescence that has that's crashed so many times, then we have a great chance. We're still in a stellar activation cycle. We're in the back end of what's called a stellar bridge or stellar activation or ascension cycle. We are gifted and we're so fortunate to have this information. And yes, it is a lot of information, but guess what? We're at a point now where we need this information and this level of information. We need to know who we are, where we come from, and precisely why we're here. This evolutionary objective of dimensional ascension, multi-dimensional identity integration, freedom. A lot of people say, teachers throughout time, that we're born into bondage, that we're born into the bondage of our mortal coils, our DNA. We're phase locked in this in this density here, but that's not our evolutionary objective. That's not the promise of our genetic code. That's not the promise of why we were created. It is a return to conscious at one-ment with source. So there have been many restatements of this Emerald Covenant during the long evolution of interdimensional stellar races within our time matrix, of which there are many and paired. The original angelic human lineage was created on a planet we know as Tara. It's a fifth dimensional version of Earth. Gaia is an eighth dimensional version of Earth. Now, you can refer to the Earth body or the Earth mother as Gaia, but technically, Gaia is an eighth dimensional version of Earth. As the original human lineage was created as an answer to a problem, to issues, critical issues which existed 560, 70 million years ago. Pleiadian Syrian councils got together and decided we got to do something about this, about the corruption within our time matrix. We were created to jump ahead a little bit. The original angelic immortal human race was created as guardians, custodians of the stargates on this planet. The planetary, that's pretty the most direct I can say it. We were created. Why are we here? Isn't this one of the biggest questions we ask ourselves? The human race was created. We can call ourselves Ternusians, angelic humans. If you know little Scottish Irish Gaelic, when you sing Turaluralura, Turaluralai, you understand what you're really singing and what you're really invoking. Very, very close to original angelic languages, Scottish and Irish Gaelic. Same with Egyptian. Same with original Chinese, Hebrew, Aramaic, Canaanite, Greek, Latin, English. English is the language of angels, angles, and angles. English is a very, very special language. It may be the lingua franca of today, but it also is the lingua franca of our time matrix. You wonder and start why they all speak English, and the way even the ones that don't have universal translators, because English is a very, very special language. The original human lineage was created as per the Emerald Covenant about 560 million years ago. And that last restatement of the Emerald Covenant that we were given this gift was about 248,000 years ago. We were given this gift. And if you've been to the Near East, Far East, Asia, if you've been to these monasteries, Greg Braden, I think, was the first one to show photographs of these massive libraries underneath the monasteries. The monasteries were built over them to protect them, and generations, I've seen it with my own eyes. I tried to get into the Vatican archives for years. I kind of gave up, but I got to the door. But guess what? I have seen libraries, massive libraries that go on for miles underground, mainly underneath the monasteries, many multiple levels, millions and millions. What are these? These palm leaves? They're translations of the Dora Torah. I know this. I know what I'm talking about. I have evidence. I have mountains of evidence to back this up. And generations of monks have translated, retranslated these. I've seen massive libraries that make the Vatican look like your neighborhood library. It's a massive amount of information. And we were given this so we could fulfill our contract as guardians and keepers of Earth's Templar complex, which is the stargates and the energy grid systems of the planet. So the ancient Dora Torah, the discs, they're like discs. They're like laser disc, CD disc. They're presently in protective custody. They've been on and off the planet for many years. I only know one person in this life who has actually been in the physical presence of the Dora Torah, which is my first wife, my ex-wife. But it is, and there are beings throughout time that have been designated as speakers, translators of these discs, and they were taught many since childhood how to access the information, either directly or remotely from the Dora Torah. In our mentorship programs, we're progressively teaching how to access this information, but we're so fortunate to have it. The Azurite races still serve as the primary guardians of the stargates in our interplanetary Templar complex of our time matrix. So understand our relationship to these specific races. And when I mention their names, again, sometimes they will tickle you. The hairs will stand up because they're in resonance with your genetic code. But remember, to get a clear read on your genetics, you have to clear whatever is remaining of the karmic miasmic residue, the consequences of our choices that don't honor the law of one, that don't honor the Emerald Covenant. Again, any thought which is in violation of cooperation, of honoring the sovereignty of all races, and that honor and that can embody to the best we can the spiritual attitudes and responsibilities of mastery, love, gratitude. You don't have to go past the Emoto crystals to realize the sheer power of even having thoughts of love, gratitude, forgiveness. You know, I talk about this all the time because I believe there is no more powerful healing on the planet than embodying forgiveness. And you know those Emoto crystals. Imagine if you become the living embodiment of forgiveness and grace and responsibility, impeccability. Every crystal and microcrystal in your body will be able to hold and radiate that light. Then you will become, as Yeshua would Mary Magdalene and all the Marys, they are the effulgence of light. They are presence healers. They don't need certs and Reiki or electromagnetic healing. They heal by their sheer presence. They illuminate all the darkest places. So Emoto really showed us that, and we continue with that the Azurite races of the Emerald Order, we are contracted to hold, because remember, if you have control of the planetary stargates, you have access to the interplanetary stargates, the intertime stargates, whatever your agenda is, if it's pro-human, let's say, or if it's a negative digressive agenda, having control of the Earth star. That's why everybody, the party is here during ascension cycles. When the vortices, when the gates, when the portals are opening up, sure, it's fun to come to the Earth during non-ascension cycles for a little R&R. The food is great down here. But when there's an ascension cycle, we always come. Everybody comes because this is where it's happening. The gates on the earth are opening up that allow access to the halls of Amenti, to the interplanetary interstellar stargate. So whatever your agenda is, the earth is where you want to be right now. So hopefully, and we're being given this gift, knowing that we're not mature enough, hoping that we will be mature enough, and that we exhibit enough maturity to fulfill these contracts that we made, to evolve sufficiently to reclaim our position as guardians, as custodians of the stargates, as healers, as gatekeepers, as people who know the true meaning of freedom and the true meaning of love. In our time, we will know the true revelation of ourselves. God willing, the God within us that we allow to express through us, we will know the full revelation ourselves. We'll know the full revelation of the Christos. The invitation is given. It's ladies' choice now. You want to come to the dance? Well, now it's ladies' choice. The ladies get to choose, you know? Our original creation contract that was decreed in the Emerald Covenant 560 million years ago. Now, these ancient records, the Dora Torah, they exist in physical form. They're a set of 12 silver metallic discs, and they're called the Cloister or Eternal Dora Torah Plate Libraries. They're holographic recording, storage, and transmission devices. They hold massive amounts of data in encrypted electromagnetic digital scalar standing wave form. Remember the Time Machine 1960? Rod Taylor and Yvette Mimieux? There's a scene, watch this scene, go to YouTube, Time Machine Talking Rings. And Weena, one of the Eloi, H.G. Wells was an initiate, no doubt about it. H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, they all were varying levels of mastery. She takes him to this room, like this kind of cave, where you have all these amazing, like hypersonic devices, interdimensional devices, and books that turn into powder. But she introduces him to the talking rings. You spin these rings and you get these audio downloads of Earth's history. H.G. Wells knew a lot. They hold massive amounts of information. The translating of data through the Dora Torah is accomplished through initiation of specific frequency transmissions that are learned through experience. We have learned to one degree or another how to access the information and it's got to go through, it's got to process through our cellular structure. Again, it's got to process through our neurological system, and it's got to ultimately process through our DNA. So we've got to clear all the remaining miasmic content, the result, the karma, the result of the condensations of our choices that do not honor the Emerald Covenant. Again, because if you try to process that information, it's not going to be clear. It's going to be a lot of static. You're not going to get a clean read on it. We also have to work on our shadows. A lot of people don't know that the shadow is much more complex than mainstream psychology or psychiatry would have us to understand. It's a very, very multi-leveled and multi-layered and multi-tiered process. We have to clear the shadow, all these elemental and figment attachments. We have to understand the true nature of the shadow, and it goes beyond healing these unresolved subpersonality conflicts. It's a whole course of study. We have to clear, we have to embrace, we have to merge with the shadow, but first we have to heal it. Then we can invite the merging. We have to deal with our karma, and we have to learn how to heal our thoughts. This is why the master key and those teachings are so important, because most things fail, and most of us fail in our endeavors because we haven't learned to focus our thoughts, and to really heal our thoughts. So it's a process, and we can learn all these things. So when we initiate specific frequency patterns, the discs will open up, they'll activate to release their stored data in holographic form, audio, visual, digital translation. The Dorator plates were manufactured from a form of striated selenite quartz crystal, organic to the angelic planets around Sirius B. They surround a radioactive isotopic core, which is why they needed to be held in the Ark of the Covenant to shield people from their radiation. Do you know? I don't know if the real Ark of the Covenant is in Ethiopia, in Axum, but do you know the Guardians? They have to keep replacing them every several years. They die of radiation poisoning. Not a lot of people know this. So is it the real Ark of the Covenant? Who knows, right? All I know is when I go to visit Axum next year, I'm wearing a hazmat suit for sure. I'm not taking any chances, right? And encased in a hybrid metal silver alloy compound, the Dorator plates were manufactured by the priest of the Taran priest of from the planet Tara, fifth dimensional version of Earth, and also a race called the Maharaji Syrian blue human. Most of us are incarnates. All of you out there, I would wager, the smart money in Vegas would wager that we're all incarnates of what's called the Maharaji, the Arthurian Grail lines. There's a lot to talk about with this, and little by little, we'll talk about this. And if you want more, get in touch with me. I'm not hard to find to talk about these programs. We'll talk about it at the end. The Taran priests of the Maharaji, Syrian blue human, Holy Grail lines of the Council of Azurline, often collectively called the Azurites or the Iani races of density 2 Sirius B, a Guardian Alliance Signet Council, guardians of six-dimensional Sirius B Stargate in the Universal Templar complex. So again, 248,000 years ago, the plates were gifted to what's called the Ur-Tite human race. Why it's important to understand who the Ur-Tites are? Because they are the seed race, our elder race. They are our immediate ancestors of the contemporary human lineage, which we're all members of course, by the Azurite races, mainly of Sirius B, in honor of the Ur-Tites entering the founders' races, the Emerald Covenant coevolution agreement, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothea, Theodora, gift of God. The human race is a gift to this whole time matrix. I want to cry. We were created to be guardians, custodians, to fulfill these contracts. Next week, we'll talk a lot about the flame holders. A lot of people all through the years say, Phil, I feel I'm holding some flame. I'm a flame holder. I'm a keeper of the flame. I hold the key. Well, there's a reason. It's very specific configurations in our DNA that allow us to actually, some of us, mentally direct the operation of stargates on the planet. Do you realize what a contract it is to be able to actually mentally direct the operation to open and close stargates to facilitate their opening and their closing, which is just as important? Guess what? The major vortex on the planet now has to close. Its epicenter is in the Russian Caucasus, but all the secondary vortexes are, you guessed it, in the Ukraine. This war has to end, and it has to end by the end of this year. We'll talk more about that too. When you understand the true map of the stargates and the portals and the gates and the vortices on this planet, you realize that all the conflicts throughout history have been for possession, control of these stargates. This is it. This is it. Like, oh, never mind. I was going to go into Jeremy Irons, but later. Okay. For those who don't know me, you're getting a little taste of it. It gets more intense than this. But you got to teach. If your contract is to teach this, and I know it can get a little heavy, it can get a little term heavy, a little dense, but I am not, we've already been dumbed down to such an extent, and these precious teachings have been simplified and diluted to the point when you get to the point of wanting to teach this with any level of sophistication or accuracy, it turns a lot of people off. It's out of their comfort zones. I want to bring people up. I'm not talking down. I've never, Suze, you all know this. I've never talked down to anybody. I will talk up to people. I'm here to help people fulfill their contracts. That's my contract, is maybe not to do the direct Stargate work, but to help people wake up to who they are. We have the information, and it's a matter of just committing ourselves, dedicating ourselves to not doing so well. Yes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 24/7, to try to be the most good people we can. Most people are very fortunate. They don't have to do the work that we're contracted to do. They can be lifted up into ascension too. We can host them, but we're here in the trenches trying to wake the people up that are going to wake their people up, that are going to wake their people up. It's happening. We have a real shot at this. It's failed and failed and failed for countless eons. We have a really good chance, and we've got to keep that hope alive, that there is a chance to fulfill what we were originally seated on this planet to do. So the teachings, again, contained in these Dora Torah. The reason I'm taking so much time this session to talk about the origin, where this information comes from, is because I want people to know more than ever and in more detail than I've ever explained it before, where this information comes from. And not only that we all have the ability to access the true source of all the higher information on this planet. That'll really help us understand who we are, where we come from, to open this, not only to open the channels, the conduits of the information, but to get it clear. What has to happen is we have to learn the true nature of karma and the incarnational, reincarnational process. We have to learn what's really required to heal our karma, and to heal our already manifest karma, and to really understand the attitudes and responsibilities of spiritual mastery, so we don't create any new karma with our thoughts. And we have to understand the nature of the shadow, and we have to understand how to heal our thoughts. That's been always the key. Most failure manifests because we're not in control of our thoughts, pure and simple. So any program that I think that it's really responsible has to teach mastery of thought manifestation. That's part of it. We want to manifest our true heart's desire. We've got to know what that is, first of all. Most people are just content with not much more than survival. We have this intention, we have these hopes and dreams for ourselves, but to manifest them, even people I've noticed throughout the years, they're losing their ability to even fantasize what they want. How can you possibly have any hope of manifesting your true heart's desires if you can't even imagine it? The power of us imagining or even fantasizing, or even be able to follow a simple guided meditation. is getting harder for people. Attention spans are lasting only a few minutes. You know, I'm sure lectures can be boring and people aren't properly hydrated or the rooms aren't properly ventilated, but a lot of it is the destruction of our glial system. 90% of our brains is not neurons, it's glial cells. Glial cells is the source of our imagination. To understand our true neurology and all these connections takes time, takes dedication, but I can't think of anything more worthy of time, more worthy of our dedication or recommitment or rededication to ourselves and those we're here to serve. What's more, sure, and there's enough time to watch Netflix or Amazon. We're not asking a lot. We're asking, yes, 24/7 to be the best people we can be, to be the most gracious, courteous, God-loving, compassionate, merciful, forgiving people. Remember, with true forgiveness, the soul is rendered innocent. It's from the Pistis Sophia itself, rendered innocent with progressive apology. All we're being asked to do, if we feel that we've been in violation or we have allowed ourselves through ignorance or pure stupidity to be violated, we forgive ourselves and those others that have, out of ignorance or mainly sheer ignorance, that have violated us or we allowed ourselves to be violated. You apologize. What does apology mean? Apollo means not many. Apollo. So when you apologize, you are reaffirming oneness. And guess what? With a critical mass of apology, the soul is rendered innocent, returns to its original innocence, and is rendered innocent of all intensifications of karma, and is placed in a position of never having been separated from the one. This is our return to innocence. The CD plates cover the full evolutionary history of evolution in our time matrix since the last life wave was seeded 950 billion years ago. And guess what? The Dora Torah plates also contain future records of things that haven't happened yet, but of course they have, of many various paths of evolutionary development of human and interdimensional, intergalactic, intertime races, and all these paths of evolution, timelines, they emerge from free will choices rendered in our present space-time continuum. So the decisions we make have profound ramifications, not just for us in this timeline, but also for the past and the future, which is evolving simultaneously with us. Probable futures, probable time vectors, evolutionary development that exists as what we call experiential potentials. Our present moment choices determine which line of probable evolution we will perceive in manifest form as a future continuum of time, all emerging from our present space-time coordinates. Are they past lives, or are they simultaneous selves that exist in various space-time coordinates? In 10 BC, three Essene Dora Torah speakers, known as John the Baptist, or the true name, Azuria, Jesus Christ, Yeshua Sananda Melchizedek, and Miriam, his half-sister, collectively translated many books from the Dora Torah, and they created the original foundations of what was intended to become the legitimate Christian teachings. These books included Jesus's 6 books of process. Some of it exists in fragmented form, many exist in pure form, accessed from the palm leaves. Very, very accurate translations. Again, generations, hundreds, thousands of generations of monks. Translating, retranslating. These books and the 6 books of process, they detailed self-generated ascension mechanics, the core templates of bioregenesis, especially including something called, whoops, I got to recharge, something called Kathara biospiritual healing. The book of mechanics, the maps and keys, it was a technical manual for Earth's halls of Amenti stargates. and the planetary Templar complex. Miriam's translation of the Dora Torah were mainly what's called the books of the cloister, which detailed the sacred temple practices of the temple priestesses, the Magdalens, all the Marys, the sacred hierodules, the sacred whores. Whore meaning gifted one or God one or chosen one. All these words, just because they've lost their true meaning, or sacred prostitutes. The original meaning of the word prostitute is a woman who is sovereign unto herself. But you see how these things have been corrupted through time? These were the temple priestesses. These were the mistresses of the books. And because the Magdalens and the Marys were members of the Benjaminite tribe, who were also called the Raylim, they were the product of the hybridization of angelics and human women, fallen Nephilim, Anunnaki giants. But because they were the product of this hybridization, the rape, let's face it, they had expanded genetic codes within their own bodies. They were able to create ascension elements. This is why mainly the men would come to the temples, the inner temples, the whole of whole, the sacred holy of holies. I can't say that with a straight face. To get a little taste of the Christos from women who were trained since childhood, because they had these expanded genetic codes, that they were trained, they were chosen to be temple priestesses. See, even nowadays, men are still guided to go to these temples of divine spiritual science. Well, they call them brothels now. That wasn't the original intention of going to see these women to get a taste of the Christos. And you see how all these teachings have been messed with. Just another couple of minutes on this. So we have many true translations through many of the biblical prophets and the biblical with the patriarchs, and even in our modern day, my first wife, others that have been contracted, taught since childhood. Me, to a certain extent, what I got was after I was meant to get this information later in life, but I got hit by a car. A lot of people know this. And I was given this information years and years before I knew what to do with it. You know, more about that later, little by little. And you don't have to be hit by a car. You don't have to survive. You don't have to have a near-death experience. I know a lot of people through the years that go, why you? Why not me? Why can't I be contacted by aliens? Why can't I have a near-death experience? Why can't I survive this or that? But believe me, you don't have to do that. I remember when I was wheeled in for my cancer surgery, I'm thinking, wow, this is cool. Maybe I'll be above my hospital bed in the operating room looking down at myself. You don't have to put yourself through that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to navigate yourself into a near-death experience or being hit by a car at 6 years old. You don't have to do that. If you stay stubborn, yes, spirit will navigate you into one of these experiences, which if you're lucky enough to survive it, you might start getting what you're meant to get later in life. But we all have this potential. There are potentials hidden, latent within us as individuals and a race to really fulfill what we're here to do. So again, the original translations of these, no, there's still so much. These masters' teachings were originally provided to the angelic human races to fulfill its creation commission as guardians and keepers of the universal Templar complex. They have served the Dora Torah as an intrinsic part of human evolution since they were first given to us. The first written translation was a collection of large books. Many of us know this, the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata, the Vedic teachings, many of them still hidden from public view, which I have had the honor and the privilege of seeing through the palm leaves. They were given to us. The Mahabharata translates as the inner Christos dispensations. The original Mahabharata was a collection of 500,000 pages of condensed text transcription, spanning 590 volumes. They were handwritten on a form of durable textile paper. It resembles crisp, semi-translucent vellum that was in common use during the angelic civilizations on Tara. Many of us have had in dreams this experience. When we dream, our consciousness detaches temporarily and we go into some of the lower mid-astrals. we've dreamt this information. Many of us have lived this information and have been lucky enough to have had teachers, to have teachers that have inspired us, that have taught us. So part of it was the car crash. Part of it was my membership in some magical brotherhoods and sisterhoods and gender non-specific hoods, you know, meeting my first wife, being as a diligent student as I can, rededicating myself to accumulating this knowledge and the techniques that complement this knowledge. The knowledge is great. The knowledge is activation. Remember, anything that's written, spoken, sung, chanted, whatever, is going to be translated into electrical impulse. And that electrical impulse, what I'm speaking to you now, is being translated within your own bodies, within your neurology, within your cellular structure, your DNA, as very specific electromagnetic wave patterns, very specific configurations of scalar waves. And those are the keys that open up the doorways to the knowledge which is already there. But how to access it and how to access it cleanly, that's what we need to do. So we have the Maharata. They were huge embossed leather-bound books. The original Maharata books were transcribed in the Anuhasi language, the Mua language, the first written and spoken language of the angelic human. Most of the channeling I hear now is this Anuhasi language. Why? Because it's the closest to us genetically. Yes, I hear a lot of Syrian, Arcturian language. That has everything to do with the DNA activation levels. If you have a lot of your seventh strand activated, you're going to channel in or be in communication with what the race did I just say? The seventh dimensional race, the Arcturians. If you have the eighth strand, you're going to bring in Orionic intelligence. Ninth strand, Andromedan. 10th, 11, and 12 strands, which we all have the potential to do. All of us have that original 12-strand silicate matrix, or else you wouldn't be tuning in, I promise you. And there are many, many levels to understand the indigo phenomenon and the continuing saga of whatever you want to call us, mythic, magic, mystical children, psychic, super psychic children, children of the Blue Ray Kachina, the B'nai Or, the B'nai Elohim, yada, 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 yada. That is actually a race, the yadas. So the Anuhasi language, that's the one that's closest to us genetically. So again, the CD plates have always, and the Dora Torah, the 12 plates, and those who could access the information, those who could actually knew the codes to open them up and access the information either directly or remotely, have been coveted by many interstellar races, those that had positive and those with negative intentions, not only for the practical knowledge they contained, but due to their dual purpose in relating to obtaining manual access to the 12 primary stargates of the Universal Templar complex. So again, once again, we've been entrusted with this knowledge. Once again, we're in the back end of an ascension cycle where the vortex that has to close and close properly now is the Russian-Ukrainian vortex. When that one closes, hopefully it will close successfully. Then you have the Peruvian Machu Picchu vortex. We got to be careful about that one because the paired vortex with that one is the Vatican and Rome. That's going to be a challenge. When that one closes successfully, then you have the Giza vortex. And with all this instability in the Middle East, and when that one closes successfully, then you have the Jerusalem vortex that's got to close properly. And when that one closes properly, then you got the one that's in the Painted Desert in Arizona. It's not Sedona. Sedona is a very powerful secondary vortex. And of course, the First Nations people don't want you to know exactly where the epicenter is because they don't want it trashed. They don't want to see garbage lying all along the highway like you do on the way to Sedona, but it's in the Painted Desert in Arizona. So we have all these maps. And so just a little bit,
We have 4 minutes.
Just good. So that's the Dora Torah, the angelic humanity's original sacred mission, the divine commission of the angelic human race the sacred mission for which we were originally seated and repeatedly seated on the planet is to correct what's called the fire letter sequences, the wave patterns within Earth's grids, what we call the planetary shields that were damaged during the fall from grace, the fall from Tara that we'll talk about 500 million years ago. And this divine commission for which we were originally created and reseated and restated is the Christos realignment mission. The angelic human race was commissioned as guardians of the planetary Christos realignment mission. And the angelic human DNA, our DNA, is designed to carry the correct arrangements of fire letter sequences, of specific configurations, of wave patterns, of scalar waves that correspond to the core program of Earth's planetary grids. And if we're not present on the planet and awake and do not successfully complete our role, our intended role during these ascension cycles, the planetary grids cannot synthesize the infusion of interdimensional frequencies that were coming in from 2000 to 2017. I don't know how we did it, but we were successful. Given our level of naivete and ignorance and just plain stupidity, God bless us all, and we averted pole shift, but there's still the possibility, the potential for planetary pole shift as we move towards 2042, 2047. When the last of the vortices of the planets close, interestingly enough, the first of them to open are the last to close. This could have been the biblical injunction, will the first be the last? One of these days, and Sheila will talk about this now, what the little changes in the cosmic conversations. So remember, all of us, to one extent or another, whether or not you're flame holders, flame keepers, placemakers, we'll talk about that next week, we were commissioned to serve as transducers of this frequency coming in during these stellar activation cycles. We are here to progressively reset within ourselves and the planet the original Christos divine blueprint of the planet. And we do this by doing what we call rainbow roundtables, like King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, like the Circle of Marys, like Jimmy Twyman's Emissaries of Light. There is so much confirmation of what we as angelic humans are here to do that it just overflows. The cups runneth over with so much confirmation through the years of who we are, what we're here to do. Not only that, how to do it. How to do it.
Thank
All
you
that
so
is being
much,
made
Phil.
available to us now.
Yeah.
All right.
There's so much information, and I am thrilled that you're going to be sharing some of it with the audience throughout the next several weeks. Now, next week, we do have Julia Griffin, who will be on, and I think the following week, Neil Gar will be here joining us. And then Phil will be here with me next week, and we're just going to kind of co-host with Julia, and then the baton is officially passed over to Phil. But I want to thank everyone, over the past 5 years for all your love and support, because it really has meant the world to me. I mean, the amount of support I have received from you guys is absolutely amazing. But as you guys know, I'm a soul exchange walk in. And recently, I was taken back to my council, and they removed even more veils of my memory. And they reminded me that the mandates that I was given when I entered into the human form. And so we discussed like my pre-incarnation agreement, the council appointments, and a lot of the non-human history. And I mean, it was super, super intense. And then they started talking about cosmic conversations and the Conscious Awakening Network and how this has been used as a communication hub to send out a very specific vibrational frequency. And so within this holographic node, we now are like a broad band helping to kind of interweave within the holographic grid to help bring about and anchor the 5D reality. They also talked to me about like the soul reconnection technique that they showed me. And they said, you've been talking about the holographic grids, you've been talking about nodes and all of these things for years. And now we're reminding you what part of that is and how that feeds in to the next steps in your mission. And they also showed me some pretty interesting thing about timelines and, how now to 2027, we've got this timeline split, but it's not necessarily a split. It's just pulling more of the veil up so that we can anchor into that which we already are. And then between that and I think it was 2030, there's this holographic realignment with the grid, and we're bringing back those inversions and correcting those. And then from 3031 to 30, I think to 2033, then that's when we have this embodiment of the crystalline human, and this planetary codex begins to come alive. And so they reminded me that part of my agreement is to remember these teachings and to really bring them forward about the holographic codex. Can't talk tonight, guys. And the teachings. And so they've asked me to create the Living Codex Academy. And this academy is really going to be a sacred learning temple that's designed to awaken and activate and to embody that original divine blueprint of the new human. And so all of the teachings are very, very vibrational in their nature, and they're very soul aligning. And so it's going to help people to really be able to remember who they are and to unlock who they have always been in their field. And so for those of you that studied with me, I've been preaching about the holographic grid and ley lines and the planetary and the human codex and all of these things. And of course now I know why. And this library, not the library, but the Living Codex Academy, is going to serve as this transmission hub for even a greater advanced teaching center so that we can then send out a new beacon and start to bring people in who are ready to learn about the soul architecture and the multidimensional healing and all the harmonic laws and the holographic formatting of the crystalline human. And so this Saturday, I actually start with the first teaching, the vibrational mastery, and I'm super excited about that. But that's kind of where my attention is going over this next little bit. And then after I figured that out, it was like, oh my gosh, what to do with cosmic conversations? I love everybody. So it's like, Phil is the natural. Phil was there with me in the very beginning when we got the Wish Alliance going. And Phil was there, cheering me on, coming up with names, helping. He brought Jimmy Twyman and, a lot of the other speakers. And so this is going to be a platform that, once a month, Phil can provide a teaching. And I think he's got like some panels and, different people that are going to be coming up. So it's going to be a continuation of everything that we have done. And with all these beacons, all this information that's going out, we're truly helping to anchor that 5D design. I can't say anchor it because it's already here. We're unveiling it bit by bit by bit. And as your vibrational frequency rises, as you lock in, and as these codexes start to come online for you, then you're going to be part of that process that helps with this unveiling. And this is going to be a huge, this is going to be a huge part. And the things that Phil is going to bring to you, absolutely amazing. So, Phil, I want to thank you so much. It's going to be an honor to kind of hand this over to you for the next year while we're getting all of these things together and up and running. So, thank you, thank you, thank you,
Well,
everybody.
it's really an honor. I mean, I know, and I was told, and it really was confirmed to me when we hooked up in Marin, that what's opening up for you and all of us is a whole nother level, a whole new piece of this contract, and it's huge.
Yeah.
and it's huge. I know exactly what you're feeling, you know, and it's really Sheila's recommended a lot of wonderful people that I'm going to have on Cosmic Conversations. I have a bunch of people that I'd like to have on because it is, like you said, it's a whole nother level. It's a whole nother mantle responsibility that we're being given. Not that we've been messing around before but it's just right now, it's really a whole new level. And we're being given lots and lots of stuff that's absolutely essential that we need to know now. And we're really at the front lines now. And it's very critical, not in a stress producing way. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing that just feels more right than knowing what you're here to do and having these platforms to do it. I want to get Pope. You know how hard it is to get the Pope on a podcast? Do you know the hurdles the hoops you have to go through to get a Pope on a podcast? Well, I've got some applications in to get Pope Leo the 14th in. Not easy, but we have a lot of great people lined up. We're going to do once a month. I think we're going to do mini panels. You know, there's a lot of people who need to be heard, and you need to be heard, and your voices need to be heard. There's nobody that's on the sidelines anymore. There's no wallflowers. We're all being asked to take our place among the angelics, not only as allies, but as equals. And I think,
And and if you're listening and you are interested in being a speaker, you can go to the Conscious Awakening Network and work with us. Go ahead and click on that menu, and there's a drop down, and you can fill out the form to become a speaker, and someone will get a hold of you. So, thank you, everyone. Much love to everybody. I'm super, super excited about the transition, and I look forward to seeing everybody next week. So,
yeah,
namaste, everyone, and much love.
just love everybody.
Thanks.
Love, love,
Bye
love.
Bye.
bye.
Nice. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Sheila.
You're
Good
welcome. Sheila,
night.
hold on. Stay on for a minute, okay?
No, we can't. I have to end the
Oh, you
session. So
do? Oh, okay.
we'll hop back on. All right.
Okay. All
Thanks,
right.
everyone.